Welcome back to the Healthy Mama podcast. I am very excited to have a special guest on today. He is a registered dietitian, Andres Ayesta, and he's actually somebody that I met in real life. I'm very happy about that. We met a couple years ago at a very cool minds mastermind, and Andres was a guest speaker there. And so I'm very excited to bring him on to talk a little bit about some of the mindset shifts that we have to have if we're on that weight loss journey, and some practical steps and practical tips for getting through the weight loss journey. And I think this is going to be a really great conversation. So welcome, Andres.
Thank you, Lucy, for having me. So excited that we somehow reconnected and I'm here now in your show.
Yes, yes, I think it was meant to be. I think it was great.
Yeah,
So the first thing, well, there's a couple things I want to start off with, but I guess the very first thing would be a little bit about your background. You know, you're a dietitian, you help people with weight loss and their health journey and performance. And so maybe you could tell us a little bit more, if they're not familiar with your work, a little bit more about your background and how you got here.
sure. I'm a Venezuelan immigrant. I came here to the United States in 2009 with a couple of suitcases and a dream to finish my career in dietetics. It didn't really start like that. I wanted to be a doctor. And I studied my ass off my entire life to do that. And my dreams came crashing down when I didn't get into med school the way I wanted to. And the whole plan was to go into nutrition school just simply to hop over medical school. And I never did. And I never looked back. I realized that I had the power to prevent disease rather than treat it. And that's what got me to stay within the dietetics field. Then that came and developed a second dream, which was I really want to work with athletes. Not only that, I want to work with the best athletes in the world. And that's what brought me to the US. I was kind of escaping a really geopolitical climate that was not really looking good in my home country. And in 2009, applied for scholarships and ended up here. And fast forward to now, I essentially, what I did here in the past like 15, almost six, wow, it's crazy, almost 16 years that I've been here. I became a sports dietitian. I got a master's in exercise science and sports nutrition, and I fulfilled my dream to work with pro athletes, specifically the NFL, Major League Baseball, and a bunch of other sports. And I was lucky enough to had an incredible experiences working with people at the highest caliber. Eventually, I turned that into, and all that experience into building my company, which was BV Nutrition, eventually branded or rebranded to Planus Nutrition, which led me to do what I do now, which is I help busy working parents like myself, specifically dads and some moms, really build a framework for their health in their lives. Using expert built systems and frameworks that I put together over my years of experience working with athletes and working with over 600 people to date since I started or since I became a registered dietitian. I think that's a good way to summarize everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. And I am curious. I think I looked it up before why why you chose Planos Nutrition as the name of it. And I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember what the reason was.
So planos is a Spanish word, and the translation means blueprint.
Yes.
And I came up with that word after first, like my original company was called Viva Nutrition, and we had to rebrand due to a cease and desist action letter we received because there was a company that had a similar name. And they were willing to take me to court for it. So I was like, I'm not going to fight this. And I think it just became an opportunity for me to do something different. And that's how that came about. And the reason I came up with that name is because I feel like my work is about helping people build their own. If you think about the blueprint of a house, is essentially the design and really like what the main idea is and how it comes to life. And anybody can take that, and if you have the materials and all that kind of stuff like that, you can build a house anywhere you want. Because that's essentially the design of it. So for me is I like to think of lifestyle design. So this is nutrition, this is mindset, this is fitness in all these different areas. And my goal is essentially to help people build their own blueprint instead of them I guess trying to build others people's blueprints in their health, which is, we'll talk about fat diets and stuff like that. But I think that's the main reason why we came up with that name.
Yeah, I love that. That's really highlighting that this is an individualized thing. I mean, we can't just, make cookie cutter recommendations for people. And it, like you said, it takes nutrition, mindset, fitness, all the different things. It's all so important. I also love that your journey with med school and nutrition school and everything. I love that you kind of came to this realization that you wanted to prevent disease instead of treat it. That's
Yeah.
a beautiful way to put that.
Yeah, I think it was a cousin of mine and then or a therapist or both, I don't remember. And they're like, I think it was my cousin, and she's like, well, like, cuz like you can like, and she just said it so like a random thought, and I was like, well, like I guess that you're gonna be able to help people not, have get sick, so you're gonna prevent disease instead of treating. And I was like, and that stuck with me forever. And I
Oh,
realized that that is what I do now. I work
yeah.
with so many people who are either on the other front or the other end of this, where they're sick and they're really trying to, like, not sick, but they're like, they have pre-diabetes and they have all different things like that. So they're trying to course correct that. Or those who are coming to me in their 30s and 40s and they're trying to avoid that path.
Mm.
So I feel we have the power to be able to help them uh, have a set of tools and skills for them to change the course of the way that they're going to live their lives. And when you look at the data and the research, like there's so many different things that can predict, or they can start to literally, your future can be different if you do some things differently today. There's a really interesting study that looked like even just jogging, like, I think like 60 minutes a week can prolong your life expectancy by X amount of years. So it's just basic things that can be implemented that if you start it now, I mean, what would 10 years of your life being healthier and better look like? And I think a lot of people don't necessarily look. It's funny because like when I was in my 20s, I wasn't really thinking about my 60s or my 50s. I was just thinking about like I want to like make money, I want to have a career and stuff like that. And now that I'm in my 30s and I have a son, and this is why I feel like now I understand parents and people like this more, is everything has shifted to now thinking like, how can I just be in the best shape I can always be when I'm 40, when I'm 50, when I'm 60. I don't have ailments and issues that sometimes I see on the daily with the people I talk to. So that's why I feel like it's why I focus on preventing disease.
I love it. Yes, because we all want to age gracefully in the end, right? I
Yep.
mean, sometimes people come to me and they say, "Well, I just want to lose weight." But when we dig into it, it's not, you actually want longevity. You want to age gracefully. You want to feel good as you age, whether it's for your kids or for your grandkids or whatever. And I love that you said, if you want your future to be different, you have to do something different. That's something that I
Today.
like to say all the time is if you want different results, you have to do something different. Because if you keep doing the same thing that you're doing, you're going to get the same results. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah. That's the definition of insanity, right? But
exactly.
they expect that they expect something different, but they're just repeating the same patterns.
Right, right. Which we're going to get into that because, that those patterns are ingrained in us. So it is hard to change our patterns for sure. But I want to bring up something that you are talking about lately. You are embarking on a personal experiment that I would love for you to share with the audience a little bit more of.
Yeah. So we live in a very great time, but also a very difficult time as far as information. We have too much information flying in many different, directions. And we have a very polarizing, particularly the United States, I think the world really, but in the United States, a very polarizing place. And I think we are living in a time where like nutrition and politics and science and all those things like that just kind of got all mushed together into this big giant ball. So one of the things that I'm starting to see is a lot of fads, a lot of things that are just coming up that, people are religious about.
Mm.
There's a lot of conversations around seed oils and the seed oil controversy. seed oils are killing us. They're like, inflammation, the big food industry and stuff. So I was like, okay, I need to test some stuff out. And I'm a person that's known to do experiments. I haven't done one in a long time. But I did a 1 year keto experiment. I did intermittent fasting experiments before like this was even mainstream. Back in 2015 was when I was getting my master's degree. And I decided it's time for me to do something crazy and aggressive. So I decided, well, I need to test to see what happens with seed oils, but also because I just want to make sure I like put myself through the hardest thing in the world because why not, right? And I decided that I did a video on YouTube about carnivore diets, which is another big hot topic right now going all around social media,
Hmm.
which I'm sure your listeners have definitely heard
Hmm.
about and kind of piqued their interest because when you hear their claims, like, I don't blame them to wanting to ask about it. Like, cure my autoimmune diseases, clear my
Yeah.
skin, clear my acne. I am no longer diabetic. I mean, you would think like, wow, like this stuff is magic. I want to do it. So I decided that I was like, okay, I need to test this out. I feel like people are like coming at me because I'm sharing the research, which by the way, like there's not a whole lot or none.
Mhm.
So I want to go through it and really experiment it so I can see what it's like. So I decided to put together this diet experiment that it's going to last about 60 to 70 days, where here's my hypothesis. I think a lot of people that go through a carnivore diet, they're looking for something extreme because they're desperate. So when you look at their lives before they start set diet, in this case carnivore, most likely, if I take a group of 100 people that decide to do it, a lot of them, a big majority, I would dare to say that are not very experienced in, nutrition. They're not experts or nothing. They're just simply follow the rules of doing the thing. And not only that, but most likely their diet and their lifestyle was just crap to begin with.
Mhm.
They probably were eating heavily processed foods, high sugar consumption, not sleeping well, poor stress, like high stress, all these different things that most likely were creating a contextual like lifestyle that was just really terrible. So when you make an extreme um, transition into something like that, where you're essentially cutting out all carbs, so you're probably cutting out a lot of processed foods. Only thing you're eating is meat, so you're definitely pushing in higher protein I- and even like eliminating vegetables, which I get some people may have like some gut health issues around that. It's like you're just supercharging yourself into an extreme that it's most likely going to have a net positive for you, because of the fact you're eliminating a lot of things. But my thinking is, well, maybe you don't have to do all those things to experience that. So my thought process was, well, how can I test that? So I decided to do a whole foods diet, which is again how most people should be eating for the most part, or at least 80% of everything whole foods. But I'm gonna do more extreme, like a whole 30 type of approach where I'm consuming fruits and vegetables and I'm consuming meats, but I'm literally limiting all processed foods altogether. With the caveat that I'm gonna add a tablespoon of canola oil every day. So that's the only thing I'm gonna do to test basically what happens when I'm having a great diet, but then I'm adding a tablespoon of seed oils every day, right?
Mhm.
Is my inflammatory markers going to go up? Am I going to have like these things happening to me? So I'm going to do blood testing before and after on inflammatory markers, and I'm only going to do body composition assessments, a DEXA scan, and then I'm going to have something called a washout period for people that don't know what that is. And research is essentially a period of time where you go back to a normal rhythm of things where so you can try to eliminate a lot of the I guess like the effects of the previous thing, the previous variable
Mhm.
that you were testing. So I'm gonna go back to my regular diet, which for people that don't know, it's not like I have a terrible diet. It's, I still eat vegetables, fruits, but I also have, chocolate and like candy and all these different things like that and
Yeah.
alcohol. So I mean, like it's the way I live my life. And then I'm gonna go, which I'm not looking forward to do, which by the way, I'm not wanting to do this, is I'm gonna do 30 days on a carnivore, full carnivore diet. So it's literally meat, eggs, butter, like that's all I'm gonna be consuming. And they're gonna be calorie and protein control. So that means I'm gonna be consuming a very similar amount of calories every day and the same amount of protein or closer to the same amount of protein every day. And I'm gonna retest all the things that I just talked about and see what the results were. What I think is going to happen is I think I'm definitely going to feel a little better in carnivore. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I know what it's like to be in a ketosis state or a ketogenic
Mm.
state. I went on a keto diet for a while, and you do feel a little bit more satisfied. So hunger gets a little bit more managed. When you're just producing ketones, again, we can get a lot into the science, but essentially your body gets into a state of ketosis because there's no carbohydrates coming in. Your body needs to find an alternative fuel source, so it goes for ketones as the main one, which is the byproducts of fat. And because of that reason, I'm most likely going to have a more steady energy levels, I guess, which is what I felt when I did this. But I'm suspecting I'm gonna have a lot of like not great effects, like constipation, because
Mm.
there's absolutely no fiber coming into my diet. I feel like there's going to be probably like certain body odors, I think, honestly, are gonna come out because this is the kind of stuff that people are not seeing in carnivore forums when people are talking about they're losing hair and they have like a weird like breath and all these different things happening. I'm not looking forward to that, but I think I want to really do it from a perspective of somebody unbiased that is, just interesting in really sharing my experience, and also from like the expert standpoint, which I think it's going to be unique. So I have been delaying starting this thing because it's not something I am, like looking forward to do, but I guess in the name of science and in the name of, you know, uh, you know, doing something unique and different. I think that's why we're doing it. But the plan is to start it somewhere in May. I just need to kind of set up my testing and all that kind of stuff like that to kind of begin the process.
Yeah, I'm super excited to hear more about it as you go. I'm assuming you're going to be keeping your social media up to date.
Yeah, that's a goal to document the whole experience. So, stories and stuff. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to be trying to stay on top of the process to ensure that, everybody knows what's going on. And the reason I did it is because everybody was like, when I asked, like, would you like me to do this and see me do this? And everybody voted yes. I think it would be so awesome to be able to see this. So, I think it's going to be a pretty cool experiment for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I think that it's great that you're really, putting it out there and putting it to the test. So, what do you think is going to be, or what is your biggest fear, if you have any, on like the carnivore, not the effects, but what you're eating? Like, are you looking forward to eating all the meat, and are you going to be eating organ meats, and what's what's the
So my
challenge there?
goal is to try to do it as like prescribed as most people do it. I think I'm not gonna eat raw stuff. I'll tell people that. Like, I'm not gonna go extreme like that. I'm also not gonna be consuming raw milk because I think this is another thing that people in carnivore like technically like they're allowing themselves to have some dairy. So I'm not gonna do raw milk. I'm
Okay.
not doing that. I'm not gonna go through that risk. And but yeah, I'm gonna be consuming. I'm gonna try to add like cooked liver into my diet, like just to kind of get like all my nutrients, ensure like all that kind of stuff in there is not gonna be eating bull testicles. So I think that's
It's going too
definitely
far.
something I share that's like going too far. I'm definitely not gonna go like the liver king route,
Yep.
but yeah, I just honestly I never like, I mean, I eat meat maybe like, yeah, twice a day, like lunch and dinner, but like never like to eat it for breakfast and lunch. So I'm a little scared, yeah, to be honest, like because it becomes very monotonous. Like your diet is like very
Mm,
limited, which granted makes it easier to be able to kind of stick to. When I'm doing Whole Foods is because I'm used to kind of buying and purchasing things that are packaged and stuff like that. I think is I granted will probably say that it may be a little bit more difficult to kind of
mm,
properly plan and things like that. Um, Compared to carnivore, which is why I see people have an appeal for it. But then, yeah, I'm super scared of the fact that I'm gonna be getting 5 or 30 days in a row. I'm scared that that's actually going to hurt my gut health in certain ways.
mm,
Even though sometimes like people talk about the fact that it just cures them. My thing is like the sustainability of it. I don't ever consider myself going in like carnivore diet like long term. In fact, some people have talked about the fact that it's not really serving them. I'm scared about my cholesterol and LDL levels, and what that's going to look like afterwards, for
mm.
sure. So yeah, there's a lot of fears around it. I think I'm not doing it long enough where like these things are going to be permanent to me, and I'm also open to sharing. Like, you know what, like. I can see why people are attracted to this, like, because I haven't felt like this in like years. maybe that's what's going to happen. And I will share my candid thoughts as far as the process and the experience, but at least it's coming from a place where, okay, like I went on like a more uh whole approach and it was a better, easier transition. And perhaps that's obviously like what will make the difference. But I don't know. And that's why I'm doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, personally, I love challenges. I love experimenting. So to me, it does sound pretty fun. And you are entering it in a healthy state. So that will definitely help whatever negative outcomes you have. It'll probably help to bounce you back afterwards. And when you did the keto and the intermittent fasting in the past, did you find enough benefits from that to feel like you recommend it to people?
I gained 20 pounds on keto.
Whoa,
Yeah, about
the
like 15
unwanted
actually.
pounds.
Unwanted pounds. Yeah,
Okay.
I did not want to gain some weight because I think at this point when I was doing this was like back in 2017. In my mind, keto was just like eat a lot more fat and cut carbs.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm already a dietitian, but I did not really have like the knowledge capacity and things. So at that point, I just did it more of like, out of on a whim. I'm just gonna like start eating this way. And the reality is that I have a big appetite, so I can eat. And because I was eating so much fat and like my breakfast it was like eggs and cheese and cooked in butter and I was like having when I would go to a restaurant I would have a salad with bacon and like chicken and like a buttload of ranch and it was like so free
Yeah.
for all and then I started doing a lot of keto products like this is when the keto boom
Yes.
started and like they started coming up with like keto cookies and all those different things like that. So I was very liberal when I was eating. And one day I went on a cruise, and when I look pictures back, when I came back, and there's a picture that I still remember, I was wearing like this like pink swimsuit, and like I was like filming my wife, and I'm like, what in the world happened here? And
Mm.
that's actually where when I hired my first coach. This is my first coach who was a nutrition coach and eventually became my mentor in business. His name is Tony Stefan. And I saw he was doing nutrition coaching online. I was like, well, I'm interested to see what he does, but at the same time, I need to get rid of this extra weight, and I feel like accountability is going to help me do that. So in 2 weeks, not no 2 weeks, in 2 months, I dropped the extra weight because I was very aggressive, and I was eating carbs. I was
Mm.
loving everything. I was restricted because I was in a pretty steep deficit, but I was happy that I was able to actually eat those things again. So my experience with keto was not great. And the same thing I'll tell you with intermittent fasting. I didn't gain weight, but I didn't really was losing anything. And it was mostly because when the time to eat something came around 1 o'clock, when I was doing like super rigid intermittent fasting, like not 1 minute later, not 1 minute, late, as far as like my fasting windows. I mean, I was eating like I remember I was working at UCF, Central Florida, as in the wellness department, and I would eat like this big lunch, and then I would have like this massive shake because it's like, well, I'm not eating anything, so I can just like eat a bunch of stuff. So I was probably having like 1,500 calories for like lunch, and probably another 1,500 calories for dinner. So it was not necessarily something that really was conducive to anything for me. And in fact, I look back at my pictures because I was taking progress photos at the time and didn't really see a whole lot of changes. So
Mm.
those experiences allowed me to really understand that these diets like can definitely backfire when you're in the person and you hear people like, oh, I did intermittent fasting, that didn't really work for me. It's not like it didn't work for you. It's the fact that you didn't really know what were the requirements that you needed to have in place for that to be the case. If I go back to doing keto and I control my calorie intake and my protein, most likely going to lose some weight. That's a granted. Like so the same thing with fasting. I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand that. And this is why these things I call them advanced nutrition strategies and that they should not be done by somebody that does not have a basic foundation in their health. And these are the things that they should be doing in the first place. Um, so what I've been telling a lot of people lately is like you cannot run before you can walk when it comes down to your nutrition, and that's what most people like to do because they like the shortcut, they like the quick thing, and then the sexy thing that comes out. And when somebody tells you they're gonna cure your immune disease or you're gonna have like energy for days, like you want to do that, you know?
Right. Yes. Yes. Okay. So this is a perfect segue because you brought up this whole diet thing, right? So you actually have personal experience doing it. And I know that you have helped many hundreds of women and people go through a weight loss process, go through diets and everything in your program. So now that you've done that, I would love to hear your thoughts about what it does to us mentally, going on specific diets, having these restrictions, going through it, and kind of a little bit about that all or nothing mentality or that diet mentality. How are you seeing that? How did it show up for you, and how are you seeing it with your clients? And you had mentioned carbs, right? That so many people are afraid of carbs or they feel like carbs are fattening, but you actually lost weight eating carbs. So I would love to hear
Yeah.
like all these things.
I think it all these diets and all these things, they just massively destroy people's relationship with food. And it turns into a very toxic one. It turns into a very fearful one. You approach food with fear. You approach food with rebellion, which is obviously something else that a lot of times I talk about, which is, you approach food as in like, this is my safe haven and I'm just going to go crazy with it. So this is where people have like that all or nothing thinking process. But I think, and this is also something that happened to me. I think with doing the keto part of it, and even before I understood like macronutrient balancing and calorie awareness and stuff like that, I honestly was a little afraid of carbs when I think about it now. And I was kind of doubting whether I should be able to, I'll be okay having cereal at night and stuff like that. So you start to doubt those things. And again, granted, this is like me already as a professional.
Mm.
So I asked myself, well, like if I was struggling with this, knowing what I know, I mean, what would somebody that doesn't even have an ounce of the academic background that I have, like, what would they go and be going through? And this is what most people, typically men and women, are struggling with, which is like a constant battle and fear with what they're eating and the second guessing every decision and choice that they're having. So they go through periods of again all or nothing. So what does that mean? It's like this cognitive state where you feel like if you cannot be perfect and be in this case restrictive or following the diet to 100%, you might as well do absolutely nothing about it, right? So then you go through stages of not caring whatsoever. But then the thing about the all or nothing is like when you're in the nothing, um, what that translates a lot into is like people are still conscious of trying to make sure that they're not gaining weight and they're still trying to make sure that they lose weight. So they're in this like constant, particularly when it comes down to weight loss, they are in this constant pursuit of weight loss, but they're doing it in this type of like dichotomy of like, okay, I'm going to start on Monday, right? I'm gonna do
Mm.
something because I really I was terrible this weekend, and they're just very restrictive. So they start something, whether it's like I'm eating salads all week, type of situation, right? And they're super restrictive, and Friday rolls around, and then like it's the floodgates up open. You're so cognitively exhausted, you don't want to kind of make decisions,
Right.
and then you're not making the best ones throughout the weekend. It's just like a constant cycle that never ends. So people are stuck on this for years. I mean, and I know for years because I have had conversations with somebody who is like 25 who is sharing these things with me, and also the very same conversation happening with a 50-year-old woman or man who is been doing this for since they were 25 or since they were
Mm.
sometimes earlier years. So these are people having like consistently doing this for 20, 25 years, and that's the scarier part, which is they've been living like this, like it's a normal thing. And it's a normal thing for you to go on diets and then stop diets, and that's just the way life works, right? Without really getting an understanding that they have a very broken thought or belief system around food. And that's where the problem lies because they're not aware that they have a broken relationship with it.
Mm.
And when they do have the awareness around it, they know they have a problem. They're trying to fix it with the wrong things. And they believe like the next diet or losing the weight and getting in a lean state and that kind of stuff is going to fix the problem when they're not really focusing on the right thing. That's the
Right.
problem I'm seeing.
Yes, and you had kind of mentioned that this was like the normal way of doing things. This is right, diets are normalized by culture and society, and so a lot of people just feel like, well, this is the only way to lose weight. This is the only thing that there is no other way. I have to be on this diet in order to lose weight. And I would love to hear your thoughts about, well, how do you lose weight if it's not going to be on these very restrictive fad type diets?
Yeah, so this is where we enter into sort of setting I guess like the things in place in your life so that this is obviously something that happens. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to lose weight quick. And in fact, it can be a part of a strategy. But I think it's important to understand context within a person's life. And for people listening in, you have to ask yourself, there's something I like to teach my clients, which is like two buckets, or I guess like two columns of things you want and things you are committed to do. So in this side of things, you have the list of the things you want to accomplish, your desires, right? I want to lose 50 pounds and I want to do that before summer, right? And then on the other side of things is the list of the commitments you're willing to make towards those things,
Mm.
right? If those two things do not match, you're never going to be able to get to that place because you have unrealistic expectations on one side and the desires that you have as far as like what it takes for you to be able to accomplish it, and they're not properly connected with the commitments required for you to do that. So my goal as a coach is to help them make sure that their things are balanced and they're seeing eye to eye when it comes down to that. What you want is what you're willing to commit to do, or what you want, you're willing to commit to do the things that are required to kind of achieve that level of success. So when people want to lose weight and they tell me I want to lose 50 pounds by summer and it's May, I'm like, okay, like that's in like 2 months. Like these are the things that you're gonna be required to do because most likely it's possible, right? And then when I list all the things, a lot of times they're just no, I don't know if I can do that. Okay, then let's just lower the expectation and let's sure that it meets what you can commit to do. Because you have 3 kids and
Mm.
you're married and you have a social life and you don't want to give it up and and you want to still have your social drinks and all these different things are happening. So we got to lower the like what you can expect to accomplish and that to make sure that it matches what you can commit to do. So then when we get into that place and now we're seeing eye to eye through that process, now it's really coming up with a strategy for it. And I always like to start people with what we call your lowest hanging fruits, which are
Mm.
the basic things that somebody needs to be putting in place that once you master that ability, like for a month at least, then we can start to add more things into the bucket or more things into the list of things you need to do. For me, what I developed, I think over coaching hundreds of people over the years, is like 5 key things that I feel are so important that everybody should be aiming towards to that are not sexy, are not exciting, are not going to cure your immune diseases, but they're going to give you a framework that you can always stick to no matter where you are, no matter where you go, and no matter what situation you're in. And I call that the core five or the power five, depending on, I'm trying to kind of rebrand it a little bit. But these are 5 habits, nutrition and some non-nutrition specific, that I think everybody should be living by, that I personally do. So I'll walk you through them, and they're very simple. You're going to listen to these and you're going to be like, wait, that's it? I promise. I'm just kind of giving you a heads up so you know these are not magic things. The first one, you probably have heard about it. You probably have talked about this in the podcast, which is prioritizing protein intake and ensuring that every single time you sit down to have a meal, you ask yourself, is there a protein source in here? I'm not going to get into the details of the benefits, but protein satiety, you need it. It's one of my favorite macronutrients. Okay. That's number one. The second thing, it's underrated and not many people are doing a good job at this, which is drinking enough water and properly hydrating their body. I always like to tell people the body's like when it doesn't have enough water, it's not performing at its best. You're not thinking clearly. Your weight is not moving in the right directions either. So getting enough water is a key piece. The third piece is ensuring that you're getting enough fiber through a combination of fruits and vegetables. And that's going to be two things. Not only helps gut motility, a happy gut is, and a healthy gut is one that will actually work well with your body. And then at the same time, is going to keep you fuller, particularly for weight loss or for weight management or just maintenance. The fourth thing is going to be do not skip meals. Even if, like, we're not talking about advanced stuff like intermittent fasting, but like skipping meals is just setting you up for failure because your body's trying to kind of make up for the lack of calories and energy needs in times in which you're cognitively exhausted and are not making the best decisions. And the last one is going to be prioritize movement. Get active at least once a day. I'm not talking about going and doing like an hour exercise routine or going to a class. I'm just talking about moving your body. we are spending way too much time sitting down and not enough time moving our body. When we look at the cultures and like, it's crazy because like this guy was talking about the fact comparing like, what's his name? Like, RFK was talking about the fact that Japan has, this like incredible health related, benefits and nobody's obese over there and it's because of their school lunch programs. It's because like they are feeding kids good stuff in school. And when we look at these cultures, specifically also Europe and Asia, these people are walking everywhere. They're biking everywhere. They're so active throughout the day that no wonder why, they don't have like a weight problem. There's a myriad of things, obviously,
Mm,
on top of that, but I can guarantee it's not because of what their kids are eating in school. That's just maybe one factor. So what that brought into the equation for me is the fact that yes, we as in like I also don't get enough movement because I'm spending a lot of time sitting in this chair all
yes.
day long working with people online. So we're very sedentary and we're not getting enough activity on a daily basis. And I feel like we need to do. So to recap, prioritize protein, hydrate properly, get enough fruits and vegetables or fiber on a daily basis, stop skipping meals purposely on not on purpose, and make sure you get some movement.
Mm,
Try to do those 5 things every day for a month and see what happens. And you're gonna notice that even if that's the only thing you did without tracking a calorie, without following a diet, without anything like that, you're probably going to be in a better place than you were when you started. Just doing
yes.
something simple like that. And if you don't believe me, well, like it's definitely gonna be easier than doing carnivore, I can tell you that. So
Or
maybe
keto.
start there. Or keto, maybe start there and see what's the worst that can happen. Well, you lost a month of your life doing something that got you nowhere. Okay,
Right.
then go ahead and do your thing, but at least you try to build the basic foundations of health. And that is one of the key components that I preach to my clients. I was just talking to somebody that was on vacation here in Florida, and I said, well, it's really hard for me to track calories in a restaurant. It's like, go back and stick to your core five, man. Like, just
Yes.
do the basic stuff. Like, when you go to a restaurant, what you're gonna order? Maybe go for a lean protein because you're in weight loss mode. You're still trying to kind of improve your body composition. Like these things are key,
Yes.
and not many people are really thinking that that stuff it's enough for them to kind of create the changes that they need to have.
Yes, they get into this idea that it has to be more complicated than that. And it really doesn't. These are amazing, these 5 things. And I wouldn't say they're easy, they're simple. But I think that people do tend to have a hard time getting enough protein, getting enough water,
Yeah.
getting the fruits and vegetables, and getting that movement. So it's all really, really great stuff. And I agree. If you can do this for 30 days, maybe you won't see the scale move. Who knows? But even if you don't, you will have better, lowered your risk for heart disease, lowered your risk for cancer, and probably have gained more energy. I mean, there's so many different things that would have happened even if the scale doesn't move. But I want to go to number 4. You mentioned, not skipping meals purposefully or not purposefully, meaning like, you just got too busy and you skipped something that you didn't mean to skip. Um, and this idea of under eating and maybe not getting enough calories in because you're purposely or not purposely skipping those meals. How does under eating kind of how does it how does it affect our metabolism and our results with weight loss?
So there's this concept known as metabolic adaptation, that basically the way that it's explained is first is not what it's known as starvation mode, that has been debunked over and over. What I think happens is whenever we are constantly under eating, there's like two possibilities of what's happening that's kind of keeping you stuck. Either you're only under eating a portion of the day or of the week, and you're overcompensating by overeating in a very smaller part of the day of the week. But by the looks of it, it looks like you always undereat, right? So these are the people that eat barely anything, like, they just have coffee in the morning and
Mm,
they have like a salad for lunch and like a really like small dinner. But what you're not really seeing what's happening is from 9 until 11 o'clock at night, they're devouring the fridge and they're grazing and they're snacking, all healthy snacks, right? Like,
mm,
almonds and stuff like that. And before they knew it, they had 2,000 calories within 2 hours of just snacks, right? I have been there before. So that's one possibility. So in reality, for them, they're not under eating. They're just not necessarily seeing the big picture of what's happening on a daily basis. And that's a big majority of people. So in reality, they're just consuming way too many calories. They just don't know exactly how it's happening. Sometimes it's a daily thing. Sometimes it's a weekly thing. So it's like they're
Mm.
super restricted through the week, and then they're pushing like 3 to 4 thousand calories Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So they're just kind of remaining stuck. And they just blame the fact that they're under eating and their hormones are jacked and all these different things are happening. That's one. The second possibility, which is I think in my experience, I have, coached some clients who swear on their lives what's happening and like that I'm eating this many calories. I swear I'm not, like, I will tell you if I'm overeating at night, all those different things like that. So I think I have chosen to believe them. And what I think happens with them is the fact that they are like having so consistently under a specific calorie state that your body adapts.
Mm.
What does that mean? Your body adapts to being in a lower calorie state. It starts to get accustomed to that. And because of that reason, it's really difficult for you to create the conditions required for weight loss. So you have to put yourself like further down, and that becomes a little unhealthy. So I'll give you an example. I had a client who started at 290 pounds. This is like back in 2019 when he started working with me. And he lost weight like clockwork for like the next year. Like he went from 290 to like the lower 200s over the course of a year. So
Wow.
it was a crazy, amazing experience and an amazing kind of work. He was losing like 2 pounds a week consistently, nonstop. Like maybe some weeks he will stop and then he will continue. But then like his weight has kind of ballooned up a little bit to 210. We still work together, but within the means of what's normal as far as maintenance, never going back to 290. He has a good lifestyle and all, but he's been struggling to lose weight, or he's been struggling to kind of get into like the lower 200s again. And I know this is a guy that is very consistent. He's a CEO of a company. He's like very, very aggressive with his stuff, tracks his food. And we've been really trying to kind of get to understand, okay, what's happening. This is a guy that for 3 years I've been never consuming more than 2,500 calories a day, 2,300 calories a day. And when he does, like it's rare. It's like when he travels and stuff like that. So for him to get into like when you look and calculate his needs, it will show you that it's like he needs to be consuming like for even for losing weight 2,500 calories.
Mm.
But those numbers do not apply, and this is why a lot of times calculators can lie because it's very context dependent and also based on my
Yes.
experience. I think his body's just really readjusted itself to live off of like 22 to 2,100 calories. So like that has readjusted his sort of like metabolic system, and I feel like it's really difficult for him to lose it. So now I just spoke with him this morning. He's at 1,700 calories, which is again like that's like a 1,200 calorie for a woman. It's like 17, 1,600 calories for a man.
Mhm.
That's a pretty low level. And now he's dropping a pound a week, from like he's in the almost reaching 220. So then that allowed me to understand that the calories in, calories out, like tribe. I think there's some truth to that, but I think we actually need to be open to the idea that perhaps there is imbalances in metabolism that ultimately affects people's ability to lose weight, but most people do not fall in that category, and that's what I'm gonna make sure that people understand because everybody wants to believe that that's what's happening to them. When in
Mm.
reality, when I work with people and they're like, I'm doing all the things right and blah 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 blah, and then when we look at what they're doing, or I get them into an accountability program to ensure that they're doing what they said they are, they realize that they're not. And they
Mm.
start to lose weight and they're like, oh my God, this is like magic. It's like, it's not magic. I just really helped you see the things that you were probably either purposely or not purposely seeing yourself.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And you bring up a good point about accountability and what you had said before about getting a coach. Even you got a coach. So I think that's something important to put in here is how important it is to have guidance and to have help through this journey.
Yeah. So you have two choices. You either like do it your own way, and some people are successful doing that. I'm not gonna lie, but it takes longer. And for those who are successful, it just simply takes longer. For those
Mhm.
who are not successful, not only takes longer, but you just never get there
Mm.
fully. So what I realize in my experience, not only trying to get to a place or get to a goal myself in business, in my own nutrition, in my own health, in my relationships, my relationship with my wife, all these different things, is the fact that when I try to fix stuff on my own, it's gonna take me a while, or there's a possibility that I'm gonna be able to get there. So for me, I understood the value of mentorship and coaching when I hired my first person, which I was super scared to do. Like that was, I think at the time it was like $250 a month that I was like paying this guy, and to me that was a fortune. I was
Mm.
like, this is insane. Like, and I remember I was like, I'm just only gonna do this for 2 months. Like, I was working at a place and stuff, and I mean, fast forward now, like I've made like multi thousands of dollars of investments to coaches to help and support me because I understood the value of what that does. Because I was able to accomplish in 2 months what I couldn't in 2 years as far as like my weight and all that kind of stuff because I thought I was doing the things correctly. When some guy just simply, a dietitian just simply told me, do this and do that and then report to me next week. And because I was being held accountable to it, I did the work that I was supposed to do and it worked. And then the same things happen with business. And the same thing happens when I'm really trying to improve my relationship with my wife, which we hire a therapist. We get the work done. We do the stuff,
Right.
right? You can choose hard or you can choose hard but guided hard. And you're most likely going to get there faster if you have the help of somebody who's either been there or who has the expertise to help you get to that place because they know exactly how to do it. Instead of you shooting arrows in the dark, which is really what most people do, and hoping that something lands. And there's a lot of people that something will land, but it's just a matter of like how long it's going to take you for you to be able to hit that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really great thing to be able to be in a program where you have support and guidance and accountability. So, all right. Now, if someone's listening right now and feels stuck between all the different diets and extremes, what is one simple step that they could take right now to just kind of quiet the mind and actually take a step towards progress?
Go back to listen to the core five, and pick one to do and do
Mhm.
so consistently for a week. Simplify the process, right? Just small baby steps. Just think this week I'm going to drink a ton of water. That's just the first stage, the first step that you can take, and then measure to see what happens afterwards. But try to be consistent in one thing. Get really good at doing one thing, and then move on. Is it gonna take a while? Is it gonna feel like you're not doing enough? Sure, 100%. But it's also gonna be something that when you start to do it and you realize the impact it has, then you're gonna continue to do it. So if you are absolutely clueless where to start, you're not ready to hire a coach yet because you're just really trying to kind of figure stuff out. That's okay. But at least pick one thing out of what you just talked about and try to consistently do it for a week, for a month, for every time obviously it takes you, and see what happens as a result. If you're a person that already does those things, well, then let's do. Are you doing them all of them consistently? Then
Mhm.
focus on doing all five things every day. And then it depends on where you're at. Like maybe the more advanced, like you do that consistently, but you're really trying to go from lean to leanest. Okay, that at that point you probably need to be considering getting some help because most likely you're not gonna be able to get there on your own.
Mm. Yeah, that's important. It is okay to reach out and ask for help.
Yeah.
And that is what we're here for. And so, on that note, how can people reach you, find you, follow you? And I would love to hear any last words you want to leave the listeners with.
Yeah, so my best place and more direct is Instagram. I think that's a good place for you guys to go check out some of my content at Andres Ayesta. I'm sure it'll be linked down.
Yes.
And my YouTube channel is where I've been putting a lot of my great long pieces of content. So I do like, 10 to 20-minute videos educating on different topics, reacting to different things on the internet. So that's a really fun place for you to be able to look at as well. At some point, we're gonna bring back the podcast that I have not been putting out in like a couple of years now. And but those are the main places that people can go for finding out more about me. And then like free stuff and free resources that your listeners can have access to. We have a cookbook that it's free for people to download. Also, I'll link it up and I'll send it to
Yeah.
you so people can download it. A calculator to determine your calorie needs, and also this is specifically for men. That's specifically if you're a woman listening to this, I think this could be so helpful for your husbands if they're struggling with this stuff, which sometimes guys really have a hard time asking for help. I put together a webinar that specifically talks about the metabolic disturbances that happen as a result of aging, and specifically 3 steps that people can take to specifically men who want to just overcome those things. It still applies to women, so you can still listen to that. But again, like it's like, heavily focused on men. But yeah, I'm here to support you guys and help you any way that I can. I guess the last thing I'll leave you with is that, what something I live by on the daily is 2 things. One, it's connecting with why this stuff is important to you and really try to understand who are you trying to become. So we call this identity shifting. And when you think about that person, what would she or he do if that person were you today? And this applies to anything. If I'm thinking of my best version of myself, successful in business, in good shape, a good relationship with my wife, a great dad, well, what does that guy do that I'm not doing now? Well, he's definitely working out consistently, okay? He's definitely eating better. He's calling his friends and connecting with his community. He's taking his wife out to date nights. He is spending time with his son. He's hiring mentors or coaches to help him support his business, like that kind of stuff. And I try to like compare it to what is it that I'm not doing now. And once you do that, you're gonna find a lot of holes in your life. And those holes are the ones that you can start to patch and you can start to fix. And I promise you're gonna be better off for it. Because I think my goal and my mission with my clients is to help them really become in their best identity, their best version, for lack of a better term. And that's accomplished when you really connect with why this is important to you and who is it that you're really trying to become. So I think that's a good place to get people to just get that on a inspirational, motivational note.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of talking about identity shifts because that is something that I take my clients through as well. It's an important part of the journey. And so I love that those were your last words. And I also love that you have that workshop for, or the webinar for, um, because a lot of the women listening do talk to me about their struggles with their husband. And so to have an option for something that they can maybe leave open for them on the computer, send a link, and have them watch, I think is really valuable because I know that a lot of the women do want their husbands to improve their health, but we don't always know
Yeah,
how
it
to
creates a
help
more
them.
supportive environment, and I think that's a part of it too. Like, your support system, it's important to when you're working towards something. And for women listening or their husbands or whatever, like when 2 people are working on the same goals together, like that's love. That's when you're kind of seeing in the same direction and you're supporting each other in that process and you're trying to become better together. That's invaluable. And that's something that me and my wife live by. And because it's also a good example for our children, or a kid, or just one right now. And that's exactly the kind of, example we want to set for him. So that's another reason why you need to tell your husbands about that if you feel like they're struggling with these things, and they're just too afraid to ask for help, or they just kind of go into this alpha mindset that think that like I can figure this stuff out on my own. I was that guy. And honestly, like I'm glad that I'm not anymore because I will probably be like 10 steps behind of where I'm at
Mm,
right now.
yeah,
So,
that's a really
yeah.
good point. Well, thank you, Andres, so much for being here today and for talking to the listeners. I think that this was a great conversation. I think we covered a lot of stuff, and I think it was really valuable. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.